All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Wall Street Rundown. I'm your co-host Billy. We got Wale with me. What's good, Wale?
Not much, man. How you doing?
Doing good, bro. Well, FOMC happened. I felt, bro. I feel like what's his name was a little feisty, man, today. Especially the way he was answering questions and stuff. Like he looked like he just fed up, you know. Um, so I don't know what your take was on that. I mean, we didn't change the rate stayed steady. We kind of all kind of predicted that. It's like I don't think there's going to be any change in that. I would have been more shocked if they like dropped or raised the rate. So there was no surprise there at all. But the overall reaction of the market, man, again, nothing really crazy happened afterwards. People was like, oh, we expected this. You know what I mean? But yeah, let's get your input on that, man. What do you think?
Yeah, this is one of those FOMC meetings where there was no fireworks. It was very boring. Nothing happened. Powell didn't say anything out of the blue. And I think he got tired of people asking about his investigation because he didn't answer any questions about the investigation. He avoided all those, and he didn't answer any questions about the weak dollar and the gold price spike. We'll talk about it
Mhm.
here, but
Yep.
Powell's like, that's not our business. So yeah, this was probably one of them FOMC like meetings that just didn't really mean anything to anybody. You can see the market reaction just traded sideways, no up movement, no down movement. And I think it probably had to do with the fact that we were still waiting for Microsoft, Meta, Tesla to report after the bell on the same freaking day, which is crazy. So everybody was kind of like, I don't want to jump the gun until I hear from them. So we didn't get much action from there. It was like I said, I can't remember the last FOMC meeting where we didn't see anything happen like that. So
Yeah, it was very blah. It was like,
yeah,
you
exactly. And
know,
we don't have a Fed meeting in February, so we're not going to hear from Jerome until March 18th. So
Jerome's probably happy about that.
yeah, oh yeah, he's happy about that. And then they were asking questions about his replacement and all that stuff. He was just like, that's none of my business. So yeah, I mean, this there was really nothing new said on FOMC data today. So we just kind of the market kind of just brushed everything off and moved along. But yeah, that was pretty much it. I was actually surprised because, like I said, I can't remember the last time I've seen something like this.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. But like I said, he was kind of like a little bit more defensive when it comes to like some of those questions.
Hmm.
I've never seen him like be more upfront, especially when he's talking about, government interfering when it comes to the feds and all these different things. Like he was very straightforward about that. It's like, look, it's better off that we stay separate because that's how we run the economy and that's how things functions well. When you start mingling policies and politics and Fed Reserve decision and stuff, things kind of get mingled a little bit. Which I agree with him. I mean, those things need to be separate because you don't want a politician jumping in and modifying the Fed policies to benefit them. We see that in the stock market today. People sell things when they know decisions coming down the line and buy
Hmm.
things when the decisions come down the line. So it just crosses the boundaries. It gives you like an edge that's not fair to everybody else, basically.
Correct. Exactly. So yeah.
Yeah. But let's talk about this earnings, man. It was a mixed bag. Like Meta shot out this world. Like it's crazy. Meta went up. I see Microsoft got smacked. I mean, Microsoft is down like damn near $30.
Yeah, Microsoft is down bad right now. I don't know what they said on the earnings call, but I got some notes that I want to go over. So we had a lot of earnings from important companies, especially when it comes to the AI build out. I know there was, a couple more out there like Starbucks and things like that, but the ones I want to touch on are the companies that are in the middle of where all the money is sort of pouring um, into the AI build out infrastructure and all that stuff. So I will start with, man, how many do I got today? I got one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine companies to go over. So let's make this quick. So first one we're gonna go over is GE Vernova. So they beat fourth quarter revenue, $10.96 billion dollars. They also beat on EPS by a pretty wide margin, but a lot of that had to do with tax benefits. So that's why there was a big jump there. But bullish catalyst, 22.2 billion in orders and backlog momentum. So that's 65% growth. No, 22 point, let me read that up. $22.2 billion in orders, which is 65% growth, and 150 billion in backlog. So there is demand for power in their business. So that stock was slightly up today. Fourth quarter free cash flow of 1.8 billion and full year 2025 free cash flow of 3.75 billion. Um, Guidance for 2026 is 44 to 45 billion dollars with margins of 11 to 13%, free cash flow of 5.5 billion. So there's a lot of growth and demand for their product. Again, they're one of the people that are in the center of the power demand when it comes to AI data centers. So it's definitely a company you want to keep an eye on. Lam Research, that stock, let me go back and check it. Was up in the after hours, but I want to make sure that it's still up before I misspeak. Yeah, Lam Research is up about 5% after hours. So adjusted
Mhm.
EPS, they beat revenue, they beat $5.34 billion. Forward guidance was really good. So 1.35 EPS and forward guidance and revenue of 5.75 billion, which were above street estimates. Continued strength in semiconductor equipment spending tied to AI driven leading cutting edge capacity build out. So Lam Research, when you look at them in the AI build out, they're one of the companies that provides the equipment that's needed to create chips. So
Mhm.
companies like TSM, Samsung, Intel are going to be buying their equipment to do a lot of the etching that goes into the chip building. So three companies in that space that are very important to kind of the design and the etching of the chips is ASML, Lam Research, and Applied Materials. I got a detail about them on my page, on my Instagram page. If you follow me, that kind of goes into detail about what everyone does in that space. But they're a very, very important part of that business because you can't really design and etch chips without some of their equipment. They have some of the best
Yep.
equipment out there. Yep. So
Yep.
next we got Meta. So EPS was a beat, 8.8 dollars per share. Revenue was also a beat, 59.89 billion. That's crazy. 59.89 billion in a quarter. Crazy. Now, despite their beats, they did open initially down because of
Hmm.
their capital expenditure was a lot larger than people expected. And if we know Mark Zuckerberg does not shy away from spending money.
Spending. Yep.
He is spending money, and the stock has been penalized on occasions where they have spent too much money.
Hmm.
But what they are saying is that the guidance, I keep saying guidance is very important because again, companies want to know what you're going to do. They don't really care too much about what you did.
Right.
So first quarter guidance revenue is 53.5 to 56.5 billion dollars, which exceeded expectations. So one of the things people are starting to say is Facebook might be one of the companies that's able to monetize AI a lot faster than some of these other companies. So
Mm.
because of that guidance, the stock was up what almost 10% in the after
Yep.
hours today. So very strong move when it comes to Meta, but they are spending a lot of money on their AI build out and technology. So we'll see how long this keeps up, but they have not backed down from spending money.
I mean, it makes sense too, because like they've been, poaching all these engineers from different companies, paying them almost like $1 million in salary. So it tracks, man. They're definitely like spending money on that one. So yeah.
Gotcha. We got a question in the chat box. I'll get to it, but let me get through these earnings numbers real quick before I get to your question. But I did see it, so thank you for that. Tesla. So Tesla full year revenue was actually down. EPS beat, and revenue was a miss. So as
Hmm.
a business, their main core business of selling cars, this is, I think, the first year they said that they've had a revenue drop. So now automotive gross margins did improve, energy generation and storage hit record revenue. So also remember, Tesla doesn't just build cars. They also generate energy and they have a power storage business.
Yep.
So that's a part of their business that they said has grown and hit a record level. It's a very small percentage of their business, but it's still there. Now they are counting on autonomous, they're counting on Optimus and other ventures to be revenue drivers. And listen to this. Model S and Model X production has now been discontinued.
Ooh.
And they're going to turn their Fremont factory into a factory product line for Optimus. So now the only models that Tesla will produce are the Model 3 and the Model Y. And I'm assuming the Cybertruck because I didn't hear anything about cutting that off just yet.
Yeah.
But they are turning off production on their sedan and their SUV model. And Elon has came out and said that autonomous robots will be so big that you're going to forget that Tesla built cars, which is a which is which is a
Dang.
crazy bet. And
That's a crazy statement.
what I'm hoping is I hope he doesn't make the same mistake Mark Zuckerberg did by betting on the metaverse. And all of a sudden you change the core of your business or you bet on something and it doesn't come into fruition.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something that that's a big bold statement by Elon. So we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. But that is a very big pivot for their business where they're not going to be producing the Model S or producing the Model X anymore. All right, let's get
Mm-mm.
into Microsoft. So Microsoft, substantial beat on EPS, pretty big beat by $1 billion in revenue, but the stock was still down. Um, I guess their Azure growth isn't as much as people expected. Capital expenditures surged to $37.5 billion, which is a 55% increase, where people are getting a little nervous about that. Software in general has been stuck in the mud. So,
Yep.
I'm not surprised, but a 6% drawdown in Microsoft after earnings, again, with good revenue and good EPS, does come to as a surprise for me. If anything, I thought it'd be flat. But yeah, not a good sign for Microsoft. We'll see if it drags the market tomorrow. But Google was up in the after hours, and I think also who else was up in the after hours? One of the mega cap names, I forget, but I think Google being up and Microsoft being down might balance things out tomorrow. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Seagate. So this is another company that plays in the
Storage.
same storage business as SanDisk, Micron,
Mm-hmm.
and Western Digital. Man, that stock was up 20% today. So they beat on EPS, $3.1 a share. They beat on revenue, $2.83 billion. Strong AI data center storage demand, and they have a high demand for their high capacity HDD shipments. Guidance was also more than what analysts had expected. So, man, this is another. I never thought that this part of the business would be tied to AI. In my opinion, I was not thinking
Nope.
of storage
Stories like that.
and memory.
Yes.
I was not thinking of memory when it came to the AI build out. But Seagate, WDC, and SanDisk. If you go look at those charts over the last year, those have been some of the best performance stocks in the market to date. So
Mm-hmm.
something to
Mm-hmm.
keep in mind. ASML. Now, this one surprised me because this stock was up 8% after
Big.
they reported, and all the gains got wiped out in today's session. Why, I do not know. But they had 9.7 billion euros in the fourth quarter, gross margins of 52.2%. That's crazy. Um, AI driven demand for their equipment and also gave good guidance 34 to 39 billion euros for Q for 2026 and sales of 8.2 to 8.9 billion dollars for the year with gross margins in the 50% range. Maybe it's because they also plan to cut some jobs. I don't know, or they have ongoing export restrictions to other parts of the world that might have hurt their business. But ASML, man, we talked about this stock way back in August
It
6th
was seven. It was seven hundred
of last
dollars.
year. That stock was 690. Yeah, $700, basically $700. That
Mm-hmm.
stock was now trading at almost $1,500 a share in less than a year. So one of the reasons why you should pay attention and listen to the Wall Street
Yes.
Rundown.
Absolutely.
We might give you a hidden gem that you haven't heard of. All right, another one. So last two, we got Texas Instruments. They missed on revenue. They also missed on EPS, but they gave good guidance on their revenue and EPS for Q1 of 2026. That stock jumped 8%. Another reason why I always say guidance matters more than past accolades. So
Hmm. Hmm.
we'll see if Texas Instruments can deliver. They're not a big name in the chip sector for AI when it comes like Taiwan Semi and AMD and all that stuff. They're a player, but they play in a different sector more so.
Right.
That stock hasn't gone anywhere in the last like 3 years. So we'll see if this is one of the stock that could finally find its footing. And then lastly, this one, we don't talk about this one, but IBM, legacy enterprise tech company, beat revenue, beat EPS. AI related business expanded to $12.5 billion, supporting their software growth. Outlook, they have 5% constant currency revenue growth and higher free cash flow. So IBM was another name, I think after hours that was up like 8%.
Yep.
So
Yep.
IBM is another name we've given you guys that also to me is in the quantum game as well.
Yep.
So they're one of the bigger players or the bigger companies in quantum along with Google. And I think Microsoft is also working on a quantum chip. So a lot of the people gravitate towards like the IonQs, the Rigettis, and some of the other smaller companies. But don't leave out Google, don't leave out IBM, and don't leave out Microsoft when it comes to potentially being in the forefront of quantum. So, yeah, those were the names that I just wanted to go over. Lots of good numbers with a few exceptions. I'll say for the most part, there weren't a lot of misses, right? So Q4 was
Right.
good for a lot of companies, but it's moving forward into Q1 of 2026, where we're seeing mostly good guidance from some of these companies, with the exception of Microsoft, where a lot of people are kind of like, we don't know what to expect from Microsoft. But um, yeah, that's pretty much it. The question we got in the chat box is, don't want to lose this question during the show. What's your perspective about investing in closed-end funds? The only thing I'll say about closed-end funds, the one thing you want to make sure about is liquidity, because getting out can be an issue. So if you're going to invest in a closed-end fund, just know that you want to look at liquidity as a potential driver, whether that's a good or bad investment. So that's what I don't personally invest in closed-end funds. I know people who do, but you want to make sure that liquidity is abundant, because if it's not, and you get into a fund and you can't get out when you want to, that's when you get into an issue. So
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
I just want to answer that question before we move on. But good question.
Yeah, but again, like going back to the earnings, like we definitely have a mixed bag, and I don't think. I mean, it wasn't like a lot of big surprises, I would say per se. Like it was a lot of things that we thought is going to be in line is also in line. I mean, I'm kind of curious why Microsoft dropped. And again, I think it's kind of like what you mentioned based on their businesses right now. I feel like things are like maybe not moving as fast as they want. And but overall, man, like those companies that we thought is going to do good, they're all doing well. Like it's
Yeah,
the AI story is still very much
it's
intact.
intact. It's intact.
Yeah.
Like, and the thing is too is when I look at the companies that you want to look at to understand whether, again, people talking about we're in a bubble, we're not. When I already addressed that. Look at the suppliers like Lam Research, right? Look at what TSM reported this last past quarter.
Right.
So the people that are sort of providing the infrastructure and the equipment to power the build out, they're not seeing a slowdown in orders, and they're guiding more than what people are expecting. Now,
Hmm.
will that guidance at some point slow down? There is a possibility it could slow down at one point, but right now we're not there yet. So, yeah, I think we still need to hear from a lot more companies. But I really think that there are some good things happening going into the first quarter of 2026 that doesn't necessarily, I'm saying it doesn't get highlighted, but people are letting the headlines sort of they're letting the headlines kind of like, how should I put it, dominate, whether or not where they should be invested or how they should be invested. To me, I think we've seen some really, really, really good things. Now, there's some names that if you chase them, like you're trying to chase SanDisk, that
Hmm.
might be a risky that might be risky. STX, WDC, those moves, Micron, yeah, you're chasing stocks that have really, really
Ran
like
this year. Yep.
ran this year. So I'm not saying that they're bad companies, but you want to be very cautious about where you want to get into those names.
Right.
And if you get in now, what I'll say is you just want to be prepared to buy more if it drops, if you like the company. So
Right. Right. Well,
yeah.
speaking of that, I mean, like we see stocks moving, but if you guys go look at gold, gold just hit over 5,000. I mean, that is ridiculous. Like I think it was like we're at 5,500 now. I think something like that. We're probably gonna hit 6,000 here in no time. In like 55.16. We hit a high of 5,600 today. Like that is ridiculous how gold is moving.
And I know people who trade in gold futures that are making a killing right now.
Bro, it's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. So all that to say, what's happening to the dollar now that people are like gold is rising like that? What's happened to the dollar? What's happened to the currency around the world? I mean, Trump kind of got asked today, is like, what's happened with the dollar? He kind of avoided the question a little bit. He started talking about Japan and all those different things. But let's face it, the dollar is getting devalued like crazy right now in the market. You know what I mean? So how does that impact your money? How does that impact how what you spend your money at? It's this all have impact directly to your wallet, believe it or not. You know what I mean? So let's talk a little bit about that because this run on the gold is just for me is just ridiculous, man.
So one of the things that I've been reading about is that central banks from other countries have been diversifying away from the dollar. So they are no longer trying to be dependent on the dollar for their current reserves. So they've been buying gold and
Crazy.
silver as an alternative. So because of that, I think gold, I don't know if it's gold and silver or just gold. They're saying that those commodities now are the highest reserves across the world
Hmm.
because of the central banks are buying it up like crazy. Now, the fact that the US debt is ballooning at a ridiculous pace isn't helping. The fact that the US is continuing to spend money like crazy isn't helping. So
Hmm.
we haven't seen a big move in interest rates on the long end of the curve yet. But one of the things I've been thinking about is what if all of these central banks, right? They're all getting together and they're like, all right, we're gonna move, we're gonna shift away from the dollar for our reserves, and then we're all gonna dump treasuries at once.
Ooh, bro. I don't know, man.
That's my conspiracy theory. That's my conspiracy
Do
theory.
you know what's gonna happen to the stock market if that happens? That might be that drop that we were talking about.
If if if
Don't
if a
know.
if a bunch of countries dump treasuries at magnitudes that are ridiculous, the 10-year and the 30-year yield will skyrocket. The debt service on the debt that the US services is going to go up. Because remember, last year when Trump
Hmm.
was calling out all those people about I'm gonna slap you with this tariff, I'm gonna slap you. We saw what happened with treasuries.
Yep.
People were
I
dumping
think
treasury. People
I
were
think it was
dumping
I think Japan
treasuries.
I think Japan was jumping treasure like crazy.
People were dumping treasuries, and I think Scott Bessent had to tap Trump on the shoulder and be like, "Yo, man, you can't
Chill
take this too
out.
far. You got to chill."
Yep. Yep.
Because if our yields go higher and we have to keep issuing debt at higher yields, it's going to cost us more money to service that debt. And this is the thing that you have to understand with the US. When you issue a 30-year bond, you are paying a higher interest rate for 30 years
30 years. Hmm.
because the government issues bonds in I think they issue it in I think 2-year increments, 5-year, 10-year,
10 years.
30, and 20.
Hmm.
And I think they've got some monthlies like 3 month or something like that. So the US needs to issue debt to function. The US cannot function without issuing debt.
Yep.
So if you're seeing all of this money moving away from the dollar, I am wondering if some of these countries got something planned to slap Trump in the face on some like, this is what you get for disrespecting us.
Yep. Yep.
But that would be a crazy thing to do if they all just dump treasuries at once.
And you can see stuff happening in the background where I think you saw today where England and India kind of made
Hmm.
a deal on tariffs. I mean, that's a big one. I think it kind of slid down under the radar. Not a lot of people talking about it, but
Correct. Yep.
that is very, very, very big. I imagine if that start trickling down to other countries now, it's like, oh, okay, we can just pull away from the US. You want to slap tariffs on us? Great. We're just not going to trade with you, period. We don't need to send anything your way. You know what I mean? It's a scary thing. You know what I mean? Like, what is that saying? You can knock on the devil's door long enough before he responds. Like, we've been knocking on the devil's door for a long time. So I think a lot of those countries are like, okay, we got to figure out a way to not depend so much on the US supporting our economy. Let's
Hmm.
start, and that is a dangerous game because like once somebody figure out how to not depend on you, it is hard to get them back in line to depend on you. You know what I mean? So we might be going back to like the 1940s China. I don't know. You know what I mean?
And with the dollar being the standard for world reserve, like that's the world currency. That's what it is. You keep hearing grumblings about countries trying to shift away from that. Like what's
Mhm.
that? What's the name of those countries that kind of have that
BRICS.
pact? The BRICS. Yeah. So I'm just wondering if they've got something brewing in the background where they're like, okay, because you have to understand the retail customers are not driving gold and silver to these levels.
No, not
They
these
don't they
levels.
don't have the capital to do it.
Nope.
But World
Forget the
Central
capital. They don't have the storage to put all this gold into the guys. Where you gonna put them?
but World Central banks are buying these assets like crazy. And until it stops, I am going to hold on to that conspiracy theory that there could be something brewing in the background
There's something
where they just
brewing.
say, all right, everybody, we're going to detonate this bomb and we're going to dump billions or trillions of dollars of treasuries and say we don't want them no more.
Hmm.
That would be
And that's
crazy.
and that's gonna bring us to our knees, believe it or not.
Oh,
Like
yeah. Oh, yeah.
it's not
Oh,
gonna be
yeah.
pretty. It's not
Yeah.
gonna be pretty, you
Yeah.
know.
So,
So
because I think people have to understand how important raising debt is to the US economy because
mhm.
they don't bring in enough revenue to pay their bills. They keep spending more money, defense, you know, homeland security, all kind of stuff. And if your revenue keeps can't keep up with your expenses, what do? Charge it on your credit card.
Mhm.
The treasury market is the credit card of the United States.
Yep.
So they gotta be very careful not to make too many people mad because you are dependent. Your economy is dependent on other countries buying treasuries. Period.
Yep.
So I'll keep my eye on these auctions and see if there's any shift in demand for treasuries moving forward. But it's a very interesting story to pay attention to right now.
Hey man, we always talk about those things, and then the next thing you know, it's happening. So, or we hear it in the news in the next moments, somebody's talking about it on CNBC.
Hmm. Hmm.
I tell you, man, they've been listening to our podcast, bro.
Yeah, but that's my conspiracy theory. That's my tinfoil hat conspiracy theory.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. Like I said, you keep messing with people for long enough, they're gonna figure out a way to not depend on you, and
Hmm.
I think that's probably happening faster than we want to admit that it's happening. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
so. But yeah, man, let's move on to Intel and NVIDIA's partnership. I mean, I feel like we talked about this for weeks and months that this is potentially going to happen. Now, like you say, Intel really hasn't said anything about it yet. I
Correct.
mean, it was just like a news out there, you know what I mean? But this is something that we talked about a lot. Like, what is the possibility that NVIDIA might come to Intel and be like, hey, can you help us with this orders and all these different things? So it might be happening. I mean, right now it's just a rumor, but you never know. So let's talk a little bit about that, man, because I feel like Intel is just keep getting all the good news. They reported last week, they dropped a little bit, and now they're kind of pulling themselves back up again.
Yeah, so one of the things that we talked about is that so many companies that make chips depend on TSMC. TSMC has had to go out to Arizona and build these new factories to meet the demand, right?
Hmm.
And it seems that that still is not enough. And it sounds like, and this is usually a good thing because we learned from COVID as well, that you want to have a diversified supply chain because a lot of companies that had one supply chain when COVID hit, they got stuck. So one of the things that I think NVIDIA is seeing is they see foresight and they're like, okay, we don't want to overwhelm TSMC. Is it possible that we can use another foundry in the US to help us meet some of the production demands that are starting to increase? And
Mm-hmm.
this is something that may not start until 2028, according to the report that we saw. But even if Intel gets a piece of that production business, that's a part of the business that they never had in the first place. That goes to
Right.
their bottom line. That's going to increase their revenue. We don't know how we don't know how much Intel is going to produce. They're not going to be the main production company, I'm pretty sure. TSMC will still be the main supplier through those companies. But my question is, if Nvidia goes to Intel and says, "Okay, let's do production," does AMD do the same thing later on? Do other chip companies come to Intel and say, "Hey," I mean, Apple is going to Intel, coming back to Intel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Saying that
Mm-hmm.
we need some production to diversify some production away from TSMC.
Yep.
And that to me just bodes well for the long-term story of the turnaround for Intel. So I like it. We'll have to wait and see if we get confirmation. Um, that was another thing that didn't happen on the earnings report was when they asked about any new foundry customers, they didn't say anything.
You didn't say anything.
Now this report comes out and they didn't confirm it yet. So whether or not it's finalized, we don't know for sure, but it sounds like something is in the works. So
Mm-hmm.
I know another company that also was talking about using Intel to build chips was Tesla. So the new CEO has really got Intel possibly firing on all cylinders. Now, again, the key thing we have to worry about with Intel is can you execute? Execution is still key. So
Mm-hmm.
we've got the groundwork of what's possibly there long term, but we need the CEO to execute on all fronts so they can deliver those things. So if we get an official announcement with NVIDIA and we maybe get another official announcement with another company that is asking Intel to produce chips, oh man, I like where this stock could be headed in the next couple of years, man. So I'm riding this ship for as long as I can. The stock was
Yep.
up over 11% today on that news. We talked about this news what last summer.
Last summer when it was under $20.
So we talked about the turnaround story. So it's still intact. We just need to see execution moving forward. So I like
Yep.
what I'm seeing right now from
Yep.
Intel.
Yep. And guys, don't forget about power, please. I know I mention this every podcast. Please do not forget about power. That is a very, very important piece of this puzzle right now. Power and storage. Please don't forget about those because all of these AI chips, all of these things needs to be powered, needs to be stored somewhere. So please,
Yeah,
just pay attention. I
yeah.
beg you.
Power generation is to me is another big key component. So again, I hope you're doing your research. GE
I
Vernova is one that we've given you guys. I think that that's a solid name that you can count
Mhm.
on long term. Um, but also too, don't forget again, we also been saying nuclear is going to be part of that story as well.
Nuclear.
So
Please.
keep that in mind.
Because it's gonna come a time when I'm calling this out right now. Alcohol is gonna hit like two, three, $400, and we're gonna be like, we told you guys, and it was $50, and it's $100. So I don't know, man. It's just a very, very important piece of the puzzle that none of these would be possible if we don't have enough power to be able to sustain all of this. So,
Another thing I'll keep in mind is that I've done more research on SMR technology. SMR technology is in existence,
mhm.
but it is in existence in China and Russia. So there are some fully functional small modular reactors in this world. They just exist in China and Russia, and the
Yep.
US is not going to buy from China and Russia.
Yep.
That's the So they're having their own companies like SMR and Oklo produce the same technology to be used in the US.
Mhm.
Because I'm pretty sure they're scared that let's say that you buy a reactor from China and they got a switch on it that
A
they can
switch on
detonate it,
it.
that they can
Yep.
detonate at any
That's
time.
There's always a back door. There's always a back door. Go read about that. Every software, I'm telling you, every software that we ship somewhere to another country has a back door.
They don't
Guaranteed.
they don't want you, they don't want to have a Trojan horse event where they send a thing and the next thing you know it's like, oh yeah, we in your backyard now.
Yep,
So
guaranteed.
I think it makes sense for a US based company to develop that type of technology. So
Yeah, defensively wise, man, you don't want to, nah, you don't want to do that. Especially with SMRs and stuff, you can have a meltdown in your backgrounds. Yeah, you don't want that. So,
yeah,
yeah. But overall, man, like the story is just gonna keep getting bigger, and I really want us to be able to like focus on the part that's still growing, right? We already know NVIDIA, we already know Intel. Intel is growing right now. TSM is another one. We already talked about that. But now it's like those other areas that hasn't really gotten so much attention right now, specifically right now,
correct.
is power. Like I don't hear a lot of people talk about power just yet. It's not in the headlines. You hear it every now and then, but it's really not concentrated like AI. You don't hear that just like AI right now. But it's gonna come a time when it's gonna be prevalent as AI. AI and power are gonna be really synonymous. AI power
Hmm.
and stories, all of those are gonna have to be together at the same time. So yeah.
And to me, the more I read up on like what it takes to build a data center and all the functionalities, you keep like hearing about like different components that you didn't think of. So
Mhm.
another component that I just heard about was backup power, generators, right? Like if something goes wrong, you need something
Mhm.
to like back it up. That's
Yep.
another business that you can look into to say, okay, this is part of the AI story. So, man, there's there's just so many industrial pieces to this picture that if you do your research, you will find a lot of good opportunities. Like I said, I missed the whole high capacity storage thing with SanDisk, WDC, and Seagate. Like
Mhm.
I thought that was a PC story, personal computer story. But that's an AI story now. So it's crazy.
Mhm.
You just gotta
Mhm.
spend a weekend, a few hours, and just go down the rabbit hole and just figure out, okay, where can I start investing money on this AI build out? So yeah, man.
Yep. Yep. So just don't forget about that. As you hear news here and there, somebody's fighting with this, somebody's doing that. Like just know that something's happening in the background, especially if you're in the stock market. Like you gotta stay in the front. That's how you stay one step ahead, right? Like thinking what's gonna come next. You know what I
Correct.
mean? So
Correct.
and
Yeah,
be there before everybody gets it. Beat everybody there, basically.
correct.
So
Invest based on where you know the world is moving,
it's moving to.
not where the world is. Because
Yep.
that's how we got into Oklo early
Early.
and Intel early. Because nobody was really talking about it, but we kind of saw the pieces to the puzzle. Now again, you have to have a thesis that you can defend when you talk
Right.
about investing, right? What is the reasoning behind why you believe in this story? What are the components that go into this story? Just don't sit there and try to, invest blindly. Like, oh, this stock is down, I'm just going to invest in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you might end up with like, investing in what's a stock that ain't gone nowhere in a long time, like Target.
Target's still down. Starbucks
Yeah,
made a good move today. I
it
mean,
gave it all back though.
you know what was moving that I was surprised? Southwest Airline.
Uh,
They actually moved up today after the earnings. I was like, whoa.
uh,
But yeah. But then let's move to international markets. I mean, I've seen this because like I kind of like played around with my 401k a little bit. So I kind of took some money and put into some international funds and be able to kind of like take advantage of that. And that thing is already up for the year. You know what I mean? It's like it was that quick. So again, international market is kind of like starting to prove the points right now because all of last year or the year before, they were down a little bit, but now we can see them creeping up a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about that and how they are performing S&P so far.
yeah. So one of the things that you've probably heard doesn't get a lot of attention, but last year we had double digit returns in the stock market, which was
Mhm.
really, really good. But the thing that people didn't talk about too much was international markets beat the S&P by a wide margin. It
Mhm.
also beat QQQ by a wide margin. So one of the ETFs that I track to give me a global outlook on, other foreign countries is EEM. It is the run by BlackRock. And if you go look at that ETF, it had a very good 2025 and also a very good start to 2026. And one of the things that people have been talking about is that valuations in US markets might be a little bit stretched, right?
Mm.
So you might get a little bit more bang for your buck in international markets because for decades, I'd probably say for the last 10 years, the international markets have lagged the S&P by a pretty wide margin. Now, I'm
Hmm.
not saying that you should dump all of your domestic equity stocks and go buy international. No, but that's part of the reason why when you build a long-term portfolio, that you allocate some assets to this sector because when the rotation happens, you can get a piece of the pie.
Right.
Because EEM, if I'm not mistaken, the last time EEM, let me see, EEM was a $58 ETF back in 2021. It was red in 2021, it was red in 2022. 23 it didn't really move, 24 didn't really move, and then 25 and 26 we're starting to see some really
Really.
decent moves. So
Hmm.
there are other ETFs out there that concentrate on different countries like South Africa, South Korea, Brazil. Some of those ETFs are also outperforming the S&P 500. So when you're building a portfolio and you're thinking about your long-term investments, make sure that you have some sort of allocation towards international. Even if it's 15% or if it's 20%,
Hmm.
whatever that looks like to you based on what your risk profile is, to me, there's a rotation happening. And with a lot of geopolitical issues in the US, with tariffs and all of that stuff, those are just drivers for people to diversify away from the US, right? We've got
Facts.
climbing debt. You're seeing gold and silver, people trying to diversify away from the dollar. These are all catalysts for other countries to possibly be good investments. So do not leave that off the table. Whether this continues for the whole year, we'll just have to wait and see.
Right.
But to me, there are some good catalysts that are out there that are helping drive some of these emerging markets stocks higher. So yeah, man,
Absolutely.
I'm a big believer in diversification outside of the US, especially in this type of market environment.
You kind of have to, man. Like, if you only concentrate on the US, you're missing a big, big piece of the pie. There's all other stuff out there that you can be looking into. So, yeah, if you only focus on here, then definitely you're missing out on a bigger piece.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because let me give you some names, the top holdings in EEM. So one of the top holdings in EEM, Taiwan Semi, that's the number one holding. You've got Samsung, you've got Tencent, you've got Alibaba, uh, you've got Sky, SKHYNX.
Hmm.
I think they're in South Korea. Now, the only problem that I've heard in the emerging markets realm is some of the China real estate issues that they've had in the past. I don't know
Hmm.
how big the exposure is in this portfolio, but at least from last year, there wasn't enough
It was a
exposure to
big
kind of
miss.
derail
Yeah.
the performance of the ETF. So Samsung and Taiwan Semiconductor being the top two holdings, I mean, that's a pretty good omen or place to be when it comes to investing. You can
Hmm.
also look at some ETFs that invest in like developed international. So
Hmm.
EEM is more emerging markets. So developed would be like Germany, England, France and things like that. So yeah, make sure that you take a look at some of these other places to invest, man. Because again, I
Hmm.
think if you're building a good portfolio, you definitely want to have some exposure there for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you go on ChatGPT and just type in international ETFs, I'll give you a bunch of them. I mean, there's a lot I'm looking at right now. So,
Yeah.
um,
I'm familiar with with a mutual fund. It might even be in some people's retirement accounts. It's a very popular fund from Capital Group or from American Funds. It's called the Euro Pack Growth Fund.
Mm.
And it's one of the better, solid international growth funds out there. I don't know if they have an ETF version, but it's a mutual fund that you can invest in. But yeah, it's by American Funds, it's actively managed, and it's got pretty good long-term performance. I just don't know the ticker symbol off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
Europac something. Let me see if I can Google it. Euro Pacific, Euro Pacific Growth Fund from Capital Group. Let's see if I can find it. But it's one that I've used a lot throughout my career when it comes to investing. So
Yeah, there's a lot of them, man. But do your research on those.
yeah, do your research on those. Yeah, here it is. So if you look at the fund, yeah, 1 year return, 29% last year, and I think so far this year, as of 2026, 7.18%.
Ooh.
Since its inception, it compounds at roughly 10.47% per year, which is pretty good over the long run. So yeah, that's a pretty solid fund to have in your portfolio when it comes
Mhm.
to diversification outside of the US, in my opinion.
Facts, facts, facts. Well, let's move on to some of the economic calendar, man. So again, we got the FOMC today. We got Jerome talked already. Tomorrow we have the initial jobless claims. See how that number looks like. It hasn't really been moving the market a lot, but we shall see what happens tomorrow. Friday, we have the PPI, which is the delayed report, and then we have core PPI also coming up on Friday. All doesn't have the 8:30 a.m. So before the market opens. So that's going to be interesting one to keep an eye on. The following week is kind of light on economic data. I mean, we have all the regular ones, is the employment report and all this stuff, but we don't have too many data coming up next week at least.
Gotcha. Who do we
And
have for
then
earnings tomorrow? I think we got Apple.
tomorrow's earnings, let's see.
No, Apple, I think it's tomorrow. I don't know about Amazon, but let me go to my earnings calendar. Yeah, we got Apple tomorrow, Visa, uh,
Mhm.
MasterCard before market open, and Friday we've got SoFi, American Express, Chevron, ExxonMobil. So, oh, Western Digital on
Ooh,
tomorrow.
is
So
that after hours?
that's after hours. I might take a flyer on them.
That's exactly what I said.
I
I was
might
thinking
take a
this.
flyer.
I was thinking the same time. I was like, ooh,
Yeah, because
that might be a good
I
yellow.
definitely miss Seagate.
Oh, and they've been stuck on this range too. Oh, this might be a good one to get like a yeah, we'll see. The high on this was 90, like from October last year. Yeah, I might keep an eye on this one. We'll see.
Yeah, WDC reports after hours tomorrow. I might have to take a flyer on them. But
Ooh.
they were up 10% today.
Oh shoot, I was looking at the wrong stuff. Okay, yes. They're up at high of 284 today. Oh my God.
That was
It's already
a $68 stock in July.
it's already on the move, man. It's been on the move. Triple, quadruple the price. That's crazy. That's 400%, man, in less than a year. That is ridiculous. But yeah, that's all we have for today, man. I don't know if you have any last minute information you want to provide to the people. If not, we're gonna wrap up because we have some good earnings coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, I will say we'll see what the market reaction will be tomorrow because we got some mixed data. With Microsoft being the third biggest company in the S&P. We'll see if that is enough to drag things down. But with Meta up, Google up, and Tesla up, that could curb things a little bit. So
Mm-hmm,
yeah,
mm-hmm.
we'll just have to see how things open. But
Yeah,
That's it for me. I will say this though, everybody who keeps saying AI bubble, the data is doesn't show that,
doesn't support it.
does not support it.
Yep.
You know, there is still demand. Whether that demand slow down, we haven't seen it. We have not
Right.
seen it. So,
Right.
you know, I just want to dead that story right now. Imagine you thinking it's a bubble and you sold all your stocks because you listened to some CNBC anchor talk about it was
Because
a bubble.
they want you to sell. That's why. I'm telling y'all, man, if you want to make money in the stock market, listen to the news, but do analysis and do the opposite of what they say. Especially my thing is always Jamie. Jamie always comes and say the sky is falling off the whatever and the economy is doing bad. I was like, all right, thank you for my indicators, Jamie. I'm go ahead and buy. Because he's like, yeah. Every time he says something like that, the stock market just like everybody start dumping, and then it's like, okay, it's time to buy again. So
Yeah,
just keep an eye on that, man. I'm telling you, nobody's gonna come on television and tell you when to sell and when to buy, unless if it's benefit them.
unless it's
I'm,
Kramer.
I'm, I'm just do the opposite of what Kramer says. I mean, Kramer's right every now and then, like every now and then. So yeah. But other than that, man, this is it for today's episode. If you find value in today's breakdown, please make sure you guys follow, subscribe, and share also. But with that being said, all right, bro, we wrap up from here. Y'all have a good night. We'll see you guys on Friday.
We'll see you guys Friday.